he dropped to his knees and began to cry. He said, oh, God, I want to change. I want my life to change. And I began to pray for him. I got some other people to come over and to join me as we prayed. And he surrendered to the Lord. And then when he got up, I just shared with him. I prayed for freedom, for deliverance, because, he had, the smell of alcohol all over him. But anyway, he got up and we talked for a little while because, he just said, I want my life to be different. I don't want to go back to the way it was. I said, well, I believe we can help you and Jesus can help you, and talked to him a little while there, and after we'd prayed, and someone handed him a Bible. It was awesome, because it was King James on one side, Message Bible on the other. It was one of those parallels, and it was great, seeing his excitement to get his own Bible, and I believe God's working in his life. But what came to my heart was I could have missed that. I could have missed that opportunity had I been too busy, had I, just gone on my way. And how important it is for us to watch for those moments. God is looking for us to watch for moments of expressing kindness. This man that I was telling you about in this book, he shared how that he cast this vision to the church, his own church. And they now have won so many people to the Lord because he said, we started taking a bottle of Windex and a sponge and just finding places where we could go up where there was traffic jams and just start cleaning people's windows. And they would say, why are you doing this? Well, we just want to, this was their statement always, we just want to show you God's love in a practical way, not pushing anything on them. And then he said, so many of them would say, well, can I talk to you a minute? And he said, they were so shocked, they just couldn't think that somebody wanted to do something free for them. He said, we started washing cars. And he said, in our church parking lot, we just started advertising free car wash. This one car came up, it was a man and his son. And interesting story, 2 days before, this man, single-parent father and his son were out, and they were out at a park, and the little boy, the son had been pitching ball back and forth, and there was a little fair or something next to them where they were selling helium balloons. And so anyway, the little boy, out of the clear blue, he just said to his dad, he said, Dad, is God real? I mean, is there a God? And his dad said, son, I don't really know. And so the little boy continued to ask questions. He said, well, do we know somebody that does know? And he says, well, I went to a church a couple of times when I was growing up, but, my family just weren't church people. And, son, I don't really know, and I don't know anybody. So the little boy, in a little bit, he ran over to the side where this fair was. They were selling helium balloons. He buys a helium balloon, and then he writes a little note. He asks his dad for a piece of paper, a little note. He writes a note, Dear God, if you're real, would you please send somebody to talk to me and my dad that would, so that we can know? And so then he attached it to the balloon, and he let the balloon go up in the air, and his dad at first started to say something, then he thought, no, I'm not going to say anything. So anyway, 2 days later, they're driving down the road. They see this free car wash. They pull into the parking lot of this church, and this people come out and say, you want us to wash your car? And he said, okay. He said, how much? They said, nothing. He says, nothing. He says, why are y'all doing this? And they said, well, we just want to show you the love of God in a practical way. The little boy heard. So the little boy says, Mister, he says to this pastor, he says, Mister, are you one of those people that know God? And so the pastor said, well, yeah. And he says, really? Because I just prayed. I just sent a note to God 2 days ago to send somebody to me and my dad to tell us about God that knew God because we don't know him. And he got a chance to lead that father and the little boy to Jesus Christ. Isn't that awesome? Then he began to share other stories of how they began to go to malls and just offer to businesses, would you like us to clean your toilets and your bathrooms? And they'd look at him and go, are you nuts? Are you crazy? No, we just want to come and clean your... And when they would go do it, then many times people would be watching them and then would say, so you're Christian? Yeah. Well, would you pray for me? I've got a relative that's in the hospital, or this kind of a situation. And so many doors of opportunity opened because they went heart to heart, and they reached out in that way. I've got a testimony of Cheryl Bramlett. She's going to come up real quick. Cheryl, I think you can do it quick. Last service, she was rolling. Praise God, because she's got so much inside of her. But Cheryl's been with us over the years, and you've heard her testimony of overcoming abuse. But, God has used her to minister with us when we would go overseas on our missions trips and different things, and flying and sitting next to people and witnessing to people. But anyway, you shared with me one recently of a lady that had been kind of a hard case.
You learn by and become like the people that you're around. And I've been around them for years and years and learned things from Pastors Billy Joe and Sharon and giving people respect and value. I read one time that people they may forget who you are or what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that's the way that he was. People would see us in the airport and he would just say, "I'm Billy Joe," and they say, "What do you do?" He say, "Oh, we're local pastors." And I'm thinking, you have a bazillion people, tell him. But he never did. Just made people feel important. And so I have just learned that on planes, and to be sensitive and at Walmart and every place. And I went into a real estate office I work at. I only go in when I've got paperwork, maybe 2 or 3 times a month. And there's this lady there, and she's really into, she's a comedian in a nightclub, and she's a caregiver for her husband who's sick. And she always talks about a higher power and light and all of this. And anyway, I've just talked to her on her level, and I told her, I said, "Hey, I've been praying for you and praying for your husband. How is he doing?" And then I said, "Well, how are you?" And she said, "Well, thank you for praying for me." And she said, "Actually, I've been feeling kind of sick." And so I took her hand and I said, "Well, let me pray for you." When I took her hand, I just thought unforgiveness is what came to me. And so I said, sometimes unforgiveness can cause dis-ease in your body. And she said, "Oh, I need to talk to you." Come back to our office, and she said, "When you come in here, it's like you bring light in here, and it just lifts a weight. I just so look forward to seeing you." And see, it's just drawing them to Jesus by who you are, accepting them and loving them where they are, and loving them to where they need to be. And you can miss those opportunities. I said I went to pick blueberries with my mother-in-law, went to pay the girl that was sitting there. She was dirty, very skinny, didn't have any teeth, smelled like beer. She was drinking a beer, had some crushed ones beside her, smoking a cigarette, and tried to talk to her and give her the money. She said, "Oh, I can't take the money." Kept her head down the whole time. Finally, just while we were waiting for the guy to take the money, I kept trying to say something to her. I said, "I bet you do a lot of things around here that nobody notices but God." And she looked up at me for the first time. And so the guy came, I gave the money, and I left. And I told my mother-in-law, "I feel like I'm supposed to say something to her, pray with her." And she said, "Well, she looks pretty rough." And I said, "I know, but..." I couldn't get her off my mind for 3 days. So finally, I went back to that blueberry farm specifically to find her and talk to her. And I found her. And I said, "Hey, I've been thinking about you. I've been praying for you for 3 days. And I just feel like I'm supposed to pray with you." And she said, "I know it. I've been waiting for you." And she had told God, she said, "God, if you don't send somebody to me this week, I'm going to take my life." And I came back to her, and I've been able to minister to her. So you got to listen for those opportunities.
Awesome, Sharon. Awesome. The servant heart is moved with compassion. That's what she just was doing. She was just being moved with compassion, because Jesus is moved with compassion. When you think about Mark chapter 1, verse 41, Jesus saw a leper came to him, and where other people wanted to get away from the leper, we don't want to be near the leper. Jesus approached the lepers, and he reached into the leper's life to bring healing, and it was because of compassion. When Jesus saw the multitude, in another place in Matthew chapter 9, verse 36, it says, he saw the multitude of people, and when he saw them, he was moved with compassion. Why? I can tell you, because when I look at a multitude of people, so many times I see the multitude as individuals that many of them are walking through real difficult situations. Some of them maybe just lost their loved ones, or maybe some of them that they've just gone through the pain of divorce, or maybe a loved one that has gone out on them and been unfaithful and left them with their children, and they don't have a way of income. Sometimes people that are just lost their jobs. Some people that have just found out some terrible news about their physical person, that they've got an illness or they've got something that's happened. Some people that have just gone through great abuse. See, when I see people, I see that there's a lot of people in the masses that are individuals. Jesus saw that. He was moved with compassion, and he saw people that were weak, and they were like sheep with no shepherd. And the next verse says, Jesus made this statement, the harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few. The laborers are few. What is a laborer? A worker. A worker. God needs workers. He needs every Christian in this hour, no matter what we've been through, no matter what you just went through last week.